Football League, there are restricted free agents, or there are contract stipulations where one guy can only go to this team in the event that the other team gives up draft pick consideration for money. Or there are all kinds of ways that they police the free agency in the NFL and rules put in place. In college football, if I'm Nico or I'm Tennessee, I, the player, can unenroll, can leave. The portal's not even open right now, and Tennessee can look at a player and say, you don't have a spot here. West Virginia just cut north of 25 players from their football roster in preparation for possible roster cuts that come down from the federal government. What we're looking at in college football right now is NFL free agency, but with less regulation. So if you're a player and you want to go play somewhere else, want instant eligibility, don't even enter the portal. Just unenroll from the university, re-enroll somewhere else, and take your NIL deal. And by the way, if you're Rob Wright, basketball player at Baylor, you signed a 2-year contract on an NIL deal. That contract doesn't really exist. They can't make you play at a school. They can't handcuff you to the bench or to the field or to the court or to the rim or to the ball. You can't. All you gotta do is leave. The portal doesn't exist. It's a fugazi at this point, and Nico's move proves that even further with Tennessee, that you can kind of do whatever you want.
I know you wish things were different.
Some thoughts that the Big 12 may lose a quarterback to Tennessee. Do you have, not necessarily inside information, but do you have a gut on this? Like, yes or no, Tennessee has a starting quarterback that played in the Big 12 last year when they kick off the season.
Yeah, I'm gonna go no. I'm gonna go no, but it's a very loose and it's not a very confident no. And here's the reason why. Sam Levitt, Avery Johnson, Rocco Beck, those are the guys that are being thrown out there. And TJ, I want to go back to what you said. Tennessee donors, Tennessee sources, they are mentioning how QB1's not on the roster. They're gonna go find their dude. They're gonna go find a guy who will fit the brand, who's better than Nico, the kid that led them to the playoffs last year. They need somebody better than that. Sam Levitt, an elite quarterback. Avery Johnson, elite quarterback. Rocco Beck, elite quarterback. And what they can do is wave that $4 million price tag in their face. What we have learned in the last few weeks, like Rob Wright at Baylor, who left Baylor to BYU, that $3.5 million price tag, they waved that in his face, and his dad reportedly was the one who said, nope, need it, gotta have it, let's go. I don't know Rocco Beck's dad. I don't know Sam Levitt's dad. I don't know their agent. I don't know where exactly their situation will fall and how much money they can turn down. Look, if tomorrow, I have a job in Locked On Big 12. If tomorrow I was offered $500 million to go work for Locked On SEC, I'd take the Locked On SEC job, right? There's a price for everyone, for everything. If $4 million takes away, I don't know what it is, 1.5 million. 4 million is a lot more than that. That's a lot more million. There's not Tennessee fans tweeting up the storm about that name. Sam Levitt in Arizona State and how they can pull him away. And Scadwood didn't do it. He proved he can be elite there. He proved he can go to the college football playoff there. Jordan Tyson elected to stay, even though there were rumors of him going to Florida. He is still a wide receiver in the arsenal. His left wing, Tyson might be the exact same thing because he's a quarterback. Take Beck off the table right now. I think Avery Johnson can love it. He's the top two.
Why am I lagging?
Levitt's got at least 2 more years in Knoxville or Tempe.
Yeah, I think what's so tough about this, and I like to go back to Nico for just a little bit, and we'll go back to the 12.
Where's my team? Why they go?
Do you have an opinion on Tennessee not allowing this? Because I think it's great for college football that they basically said, like, hey, we're not playing this game. I did a video before he left when it was just kind of like his missed practice. And my gut,
We're getting our butts kicked.
they were going to win. We saw this a couple of years
There's no direction.
Other than like in Alabama, he kind of. I saw a lot of Miami fans, and I know they changed it. They actually like me on this channel, but I saw a lot of Miami fans like, yeah, like this never happened here. And I'm like, hold on, it's not never happened again. Like Mario does seem like he has tightened up his skin on it. So credit to him for that. But this didn't happen in Miami. It happened very publicly in Tallahassee. It just wasn't the quarterback. It was the defensive lineman. Back out. This happens. I like that Tennessee did not allow this. I think it would have been a bad precedent to continue to see this happen before in college football. And I'm hoping, when you look at some of the rumors of where Nico may land, UNC, UCLA, UCLA. None of these are. Well, I mean, I guess Tulane is kind of a playoff contender because of the investment in 5 season. And with Nico, they certainly are. But not a championship team, right? I'm thankful almost to a fault that Notre Dame's not jumping into this, Ohio State's not jumping into this, USC's not jumping into this. Not that I think USC's a serious contender, but they have a lot of talent out there for sure. I'm glad that this is not being honored by their coaches. Now, a place where Belichick's at, a place like UCLA, Tulane, yeah, you gotta go all the way in any of those kind of places where you are. But I'm thankful that, listen, players are gonna do what they want to do, teams are gonna do what they want to do at the end of the day. That's fine. I don't have any problem with that. I'm glad that the bluff was called and they said, hey, you're not worth it. We're not gonna get publicly rejected like this, and good luck.
Yeah, Tennessee says go. And I don't think that Nico is necessarily upset with that because now he's got an opportunity to make more money. And if money was ultimately not winning the championship, then money probably would be what you get. I imagine now he'll start shopping at the shop. North Carolina, the school will be on the shop. However, what's really hurting people, and everyone's talking about this, the public perception of Nico, who could have been a preseason Heisman contender in some people's books, led his team to the college football playoff last year, starting for an SEC school. That public perception has changed into what a bad quarterback, what an overrated quarterback, what a diva, and I believe that's going to hurt him when he gets in these negotiations. He has less power than what he perceives as we speak, and I think then if you're Sam Levitt, to rock go back to Avery Johnson and say, look, and come on, come give me an offer for $4 million, and then his camp from there and leverage with the Arizona State or the Kansas State NIL collections and say, you get a $4 million offer from Tennessee, are you willing to keep him? How much are you willing to give him? And I don't know these kids' characters, I don't know if they're willing to stay, but let's think about it this way. In a job, if you get another offer, somebody else calls you and says, hey, we'll give you $1 million extra dollars, you would be silly now to support that. This is really necessary. Either Deloitte or KPMG. There is $1 million Deloitte, KPMG offer at $2 million. Probably without asking the question. But no one's going to look at you and say, oh, you weren't loyal to Deloitte. You weren't loyal to that CPA firm or whatever you're working. They're going to say, oh, you took another opportunity too. You can give Johnson or Sam Levitt or Nico and say, they hate their school or they're such a brat. They're kind of employees. All right. They're employees of the football program who do what they have. Yeah, so I want to
Help!
I think his dad mixed up in the middle of it. The way it kind of went down publicly, it happened in the spring, and there was a portal window in December. We could have saved a lot of this drama. I think that is all a bad PR look for him. I do agree. He's personally negotiating with other schools. Tulane, I don't think has $4 million in trophies, right? If that's what he was up. So I agree with all that. Where I think the real problem is Tennessee was not going to land Nico if not offering him an outrageous $8+ million NIL package as a high school, right? And I mean USC was absolutely a huge fan of the college, probably the best from the people that I've spoken with. And I do have a lot of respect for guys like Kirby Smart and others who are still very relational. And I like that type of a lot. This is not a shot at him or Tennessee or anything like that. We do really well with our Tennessee followers on the channel. But I do think it's a lesson that when things are more transactional than relational, that's when you get into a lot of trouble. And so Nico was offered.
Come on!
Come and play for him. It's not a surprise that during the day when the market's changed and you see Mesa over at Duke making $4 a year, you know, you say like, dude, I've been in Mesa. Like, I think we've all joked and said like, I don't know, Nico wasn't that good. I got him on my way. He was paying that guy, right? Or he looks around the market and says like, look what that just got in Miami. Like, I'm worth more money. But when it's transactional and not relational, that's the issue. And I think that's a lesson for everybody. Yeah, it's great. It's great to flex a huge recruiting win and huge, hey, we got money here at BYU or Florida State or Ohio State. We won this battle because we're rich. That's great. Yeah, that's a great that's why relationships are so smart. And Kirby's talked about it, others have talked about it. They really build that relationship first, and then NIL. They take
Well, we're gonna lose.
Nobody on Georgia's roster is underpaid. Nobody on Ohio State's roster is underpaid, right? So they take care of their guys, but they very much focus on the relationship part. And that's where I think maybe Tennessee has a life lesson to learn about that going forward.
No doubt, and this is hopefully the year's time, kind of a moot point in college athletics. We realize that was the last time that headline made shockwaves across college football because something has been put in place to avoid this situation, or at least make it cleaner, where kids can't make as strong demands or universities can't kick somebody hurt because it will be abused by a university who kicks somebody who's a quality player to hurt. It will be abused by a player who thinks they can make more money and then gets hurt.
Flights, cars, and hotels from hundreds of travel sites. Things fewer people do. Check sites tags already checked. Play working, play different working. Short, cool word, thought it would be worth more. Oh yeah, back to the kayak app for a great deal.
So by now, every one of you know, Nico Yamali.
Shannon Terry joins us now from on3.com. Shannon, what's up? How are you, man? How you guys doing? I mean,
Kind of crazy.
this whole Nico thing is going to be studied by everybody. It's lawyers, agents, family members, athletes, students. I mean,
ADs.
everybody. This is crazy. And it's funny. I feel like we talked with you about this at y'all's event a couple of years ago. And
Come on, dude.
we could have done this fast.
Yeah, this is inevitable, and there's so many things to think about, look at. I think there's two core fundamental points here. I think the first, two things can be right and wrong at the same time. I think the first thing is the system is broken. There aren't guardrails around it. No one really knows how to act. Everyone knows that everyone believes that these athletes deserve to participate in the revenue and all the things, but there's no guardrails and there's no rules. And so that is the problem. The second point that is obviously very important here is that from the NICO count, what they did is categorically wrong. Being someone who either played sports or been in sports my entire life, there is a balance of, I and team and personal, versus what's best for the team. And I don't think, just kind of knowing the Polynesian culture, I don't know if it's Polynesian, but the culture of that relationship, the strength of the father figure there, I just think there were a lot of outside influences that were well beyond Nico's scope, to manage. It's a really unfortunate situation, and I applaud Josh Heupel, for not letting it go on for any longer.
Yeah, Don and Slade both pointed that out, the relationship between father and son and a Polynesian heritage that Don experienced with Tua and his dad on a first-hand level. And yeah, I mean, in that world, you just don't question pops.
It's admirable. It's a situation, and we have an inefficient market. Like right now, quarterbacks, are commanding extraordinary value on the open market. That's just the fact. I think what you got to decide though is where's the line between what I'm making, how close is to a top end number versus what's acceptable. And I think that negotiation just was never really realistic from what we were told. Our valuation on Nico for a long time has been $2.5 million. Okay, now that puts him in the top 10, puts him at number 8 of all quarterbacks that will play this year. I think that's fair. You know, the rumor was crazy. He's looking for
What's my team doing?
It's the question, should he get it from a short-term perspective, because he and both Tennessee have made so much investment in each other. It just didn't seem like a smart move to hold that hostage. One last point. Negotiations, active negotiations, and this type of thing is going on at every school right now. This Nico's situation is public, it's polarizing. You know, you combine both passion and business to perhaps the most passionate fan base, which is like combining ammonium nitrate and nitroglycerin. You know, it's fine, you put it on Terry's toast, man. And it blows up, and that's what's happening.
Shannon Terry with us from on3.com. So, how difficult will it be for him to find that kind of money at this point in the calendar?
I don't think this point in the calendar, it definitely impedes him to some degree, because you know a lot of schools, a large number of them have have already made their decisions, and you know you've read the internet, you know the schools that are out there that are quarterback shopping right now, and then there's some interleague rules. You know, if the SEC didn't have the SEC rule, you know, we would see all hell break loose. I mean, I can't imagine if the SEC didn't have its rules, what would be going on with the Arkansas quarterback right now? Because that kid has some serious talent. I know he's coveted heavily by a lot of schools. Answering your question though, I think he'll end up somewhere, and I'm sure he'll end up, probably. He's not going to take a pay cut here, would be my guess. But is this the right? The brand, if you're a GM now, you're looking at this. It definitely is going to throw up a lot of red flags, and so you worry about his development. You worry about the amount of time he has to work with another system, another coordinator. God, there's just so many factors here, and none of them look that great for Nico.
So it's interesting because we just got into a pretty heavy discussion with somebody calling in and saying, okay, Slade, we know Slade bleeds orange like no other, right? And so the caller had just said, okay, well, if that were you back in the day, like, would you, as loyal as you are to Tennessee, there's no way, would you leave for that kind of money? And Slade's like, of course, like everybody would, but it does bring the question of, and you kind of mentioned that this is going on at every school, but it brings the question of how often does this happen? Does this mean that the loyalty is gone in college football? I don't think it's that far. It's just a different age, right? But you've been on the kind of cutting edge of knowing that this was all coming, so I just want your take on kind of that topic of it.
It's going on more than you would think. It's going on at every program, all over the place, and Nico is a polarizing player in this regard. It's going on everywhere, and these athletes, they want to be paid what they're worth, but there's no system in place that truly defines what they're worth. Like we calculate the on-3 evaluation, and it analyzes all the money for a position and a nationally ranked player, and it comes up with a composite around that. However, all it takes is one school that has a position in need and a little money to break that valuation, and so it's a constant moving target. So at some point, look, there are many times that we all have opportunities to go somewhere else to make more money in things of life. Okay, this isn't unknown. But at some point in time, you have to look beyond kind of the short-term trajectory and think about this in a much bigger scale. If I'm a free safety or a safety or some other position where the money on the backside isn't so large, it's different for an athlete than, to me, at a high-profile, high-paid position like quarterback. That's my view. And I see Ron shaking his head there. But I want to be clear. Like, I come from a poor background. This isn't, there's nothing about, where I came from that this wouldn't have been tempting to me as well. But parents or people have to step in place. If there's a high profile in the background, that's a factor. That's a much different factor than I'm going to go get mine if I'm a running back or free safety or something. That's my own take on going for the money.
That's a great point. Quarterback's just different. It's different in the NFL. It's different in college. So you guys, in terms of your consumers, and in terms of our consumers, I think people will get there where they understand that this is a business now, and these guys are professional athletes getting paid lots of money, especially at the quarterback position. What are you seeing from your consumers in terms of like how they understand this now? Because it's hard for college football fans to take the fan hat off, where maybe it's not so hard when you're a professional fan.
College fan base is pissed off. They're pissed off because they don't know what to do. They don't know how to follow it. Everyone, I think, is fine with this being a business, and this is a monster business. This is a multi-billion-dollar business, and it's only going to go up because there's still so much more inventory, and the rights are still discounted for what the viewership is. So we're going to see a 3x. It's going to continue for a long period of time. Athletes need a big chunk of that. The fans have had enough, though. The fans don't know what to expect. Things like the spring transfer portal, doesn't make sense in a lot of ways, but there are ways that it does make sense.
Right.
I'm not going to make my 2D, I'm not going to get to play, I want to go somewhere else to have a better opportunity. Makes sense, right? So you can play it. There's going to have to be a governing body. There's going to have to be collective bargaining for the athletes, revenue share, and some of the power players are going to have to step up and carve this thing out and run it like a true business with true leadership, true revenue sharing, and true guardrails. And what I hate this situation for college. All my friends, I hate it. I'm done with it. I'm tired of it and all the things. What I do like about it is these events are so polarizing. I think they get us to a solution much faster. I think every one of these events are a positive in the sense that we will get to where we need to be at a much faster pace. The last point on this, I'm tired of everyone saying go back to the way it was. Okay? Stop. Okay? These athletes deserve chunks of this money because the money now is so disproportionately more than the value they receive from their scholarships and being a part of the program. The economics don't work in the old days. So set it up and pay them. It's just the fact. It's different, but different can be good.
It just has to be fixed. There has to be guardrail. I mean, what do you think? Is it something like, should they just go the almost NFL model?
Yeah, for sure.
Contracts and free agency
collective bargaining
collective,
agreement.
all
Yeah.
of this.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what you've got Title IX and you've got you've got employee rights issues, but at the end of the day, college football and college basketball need to carve out, form their super conferences, collective bargain, set up, and then distribute profits back to the schools. Whether private equity gets involved and owns part of these schools, super revenue, i.e. football, new business, then that's a whole different discussion for another day. But that's the facts. That's what's got to happen. It's got to happen sooner than later.
Shannon, do you think we'll get to licensed attorneys agents, whatever it may be, being able to do the negotiating? And how do you get out of the backroom back channel call?
It's not happening until there's a governing body. There's no. It's not going to happen until the whole system is broken and set up again. And you would think the SEC and the Big Ten hold so much leverage.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that are going to have to lead this, in my opinion. I don't think Congress can do anything. If Congress gets involved, you're going to see athletes completely misrepresented and end up on the short side of the stick. Fact. And because all the lobbying that has been done by Congress has been done at the NCAA level, where you'll have power players representing the schools come in, and then you'll have the polo swimmer, equestrian rider from North Dakota State come speak on behalf of athlete, revenue. You don't have, it's been comical the way it's been, and look, I'm making light of it, but we'll get there. I don't think the game suffered this year. I definitely think there was some apathy in the fan base. I think this spring we've seen a ton of that. We saw a lot of empty stadiums this spring. I know the format was different, but ratings could suffer. Fans are pissed off.
Shane
Yeah,
and
I feel
Terry,
like they do want it.
don't say that.
No, he's got all these loyal fans.
Shane and Terry created Rival, sold it, created 24/7 Sports, sold it. Now he's got on3.com. I know when you guys created these valuations, you got some pushback from fans, like how do you know this guy's rated this or worth this, and do you still get that? Do you still answer those questions now?
Oh yeah, for sure. There's both. If something is working or something is interesting, there's two sides of argument. There's this sucks and this is great. We did this. We obviously did this because it's interesting, it's fun, and why not go lead? Our inspiration was to build a school. Go on and see how much your house is worth or one that you want to buy. But for us, the thing that we cracked, which was interesting, was we realized that all of the NIL money was actually just paid for play. There wasn't much money from the Gatorades and the Nikes.
Oh, man.
We started it because we had a wide reporter network just tracking what schools were paying kids, and we built models based on it. And we made, okay, if this kid's the number one running back in America, he's getting these offers. Maybe that's the value for that ranking. And so it's worth, these athletes have used it, schools have used it. I think it does a really good job for the top, say, 300 or 400 high school players and college players. Transfer portal is something that we're going to continue. It's something that we adjust. I look forward to the day where contracts are reported, and that can go into the model. That's what happens.
It's interesting how, Shannon, when you got started on grade.com, this was just beginning to happen, and you guys had the forethought to kind of sense that and to go in that direction. And, whether people question, any company worth $2.5 million or not, I think it is fascinating and interesting, that bit of information that you guys provide.
Your best. We take some bullets. That's what makes this fun. Think about it. We're talking sport, and you would think with the vitriol sometimes that literally, we produce some pharmaceutical that killed grandma. And you think about it, it's true. I don't know, it's gotten to a point too where I'm not sure any fan base likes it. I used to be, I'm an admitted Alabama fan. I'm certainly not as passionate about it as I used to be. And the Alabama fans don't like me now. Tennessee fans, don't like me, and I do nothing but say great things about Josh Heupel. I think he's a terrific man and a really good coach. I don't know. It's fun, and I am unbelievably excited to get to work in sports. So it's hard to get you mad, but by giving them mean tweet at me. Like, I get to work in sports.
The responses are great though, and I love it.
Oh, God, for sure.
So when you were playing basketball at Lipscomb, let's say you're making, I don't know, $200,000 from Lipscomb, and Belmont called you in the offseason of your sophomore year and said, hey, we'll give you $400,000. You going?
100%. I didn't have a ceiling. You know, that was my point. My point was that was it for me. So 100%. Nico's situation is different because Nico's playing a 10-year, 12-year, long-term game. But as far as the rest of these players out there, they are absolutely, in so many ways, you know, doing the right thing, going to a better opportunity. I mean, they're going to be making more money than they're ever going to make in a lot of cases. The majority of these kids are going to be making more money than they're ever going to make in this. And the emotional and the mental strain this is going to cause, there are no words. Athletes already have incredible time dealing with the emotional, you know, work, finding their worth after they play sports. And now instead of having these pro players with that tennis issue, because I've talked to you guys have all talked to all this, what am I worth now? I don't even know. I used to be this, and now I don't even know what I'm doing. Well, guess what? That whole same depression problem is going to now happen 4 years or 10 years earlier, 4 years earlier. That's going to create so many problems for these kids. They're making $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 a year. They're going to come down with 3 and say, hey, I really want to work on your social team. I'm going to say, yes, we'd love to have you here. And the starting salary is $60,000. And, you know, they're going to go work for the banker. They're going to go to Pinnacle. Pinnacle's got, would love to put you in a relationship management training program. We're so excited to extend this offer to you. You beat out these 2 Belmont students because we know you're an athlete. We know you work hard. We know you're ready for this point in your career. Here's $75,000. Oh, but and also we don't have a clothing allowance, and we don't have a meal table, and
No gas.
we don't have an Uber service. I mean, what are you gonna do?
Yes. You preaching, Shannon. When I first got out here, I don't know how many times I shared the story of the transition back to reality. Regardless of how much money you made, whatever it is, you get dropped back into a world of reality where you are normal. And you don't have that stage or that platform. It's different, man. It's different, though.
Shannon Terry with us on 3HLFrom3.com. You can check them out. And Shannon, so is Josh Heupel kind of a pioneer in a sense in that they walked away from Nico? And I know it's more than just him, but among his colleagues in the coaching world, now there's precedent for a guy that thinks about holding out. Here's what Josh Heupel did. This is exactly what we're just going to follow that path.
I'm telling you this, there have been a lot of kids holding out. So I'm sitting here listening right now. It's been going on, brother, and it's happened. It's happened a bunch. Y'all just don't know it, and it's been getting resolved very late in the game. Heupel is a pioneer doing this, and I think enough was enough for all the reasons. But I don't know on the inside. I haven't spoken with him yet. I will at some point in time. Enough was enough, and he stood up and did what was right.
While we've got you, who's going to be the next Lipscomb basketball coach?
Good question. You know, there are a lot of good candidates out there. You know, some have Belmont backgrounds. You know, Philip, you know, go that path again. I do know this. I played 2 years with Philip Hutchison. He's a brilliant guy. I think he's like 99 percentile in OSAT. You know, he could have done anything he wanted to do in the world. He will pick a Philip guy. You know, so I have no idea what he's thinking. I certainly would never recommend any candidate to him. You know, I wouldn't go try to pull someone from Texas or someone from Alabama that's your number or whatever. He will find a Philip guy that fits what he's wanting to do there. I have no idea who it is. But let's talk about, like, where are you now at with small college sports? Yeah. Like we had 4 1 seeds in the Final Four. Look at what Belmont has lost over the past couple years. as far as talent. How do those programs compete? If they don't have the money, you know, they're creating some players. They get plucked to play. I would not want to be in that situation.
And there are players all over the national landscape that you're doing well. And
I would love Coach Lips coming out. I've always thought how would this. So what do you think about this for small college? I'd go get me 3 6'2" combo guards.
yeah,
Okay, straight dogs.
yeah,
They got a warrant. They can't really like. You know, they're not the guy that's going to end up at Louisville or Kentucky. Short, handleable, not afraid to shoot. You know those guys. You played with.
yeah.
I go get 3 of those guys. I would go get me a 6'7" shooter, stiff as a board. Like I go make everything he shot. And I'd go get me some big guy that should block people out.
Yeah.
Yeah, protect the rim. Let him go. He can even be undersized, but if he's a hell of an athlete, we're gonna run with him.
Yeah, that's what I do.
You guys have it figured out.
We just let it go.
That's it. 3 combo guards. Start there.
I love that. Yeah.
We make Nate Oates look like a snail.
Right, we get after him.
Yes.
Shannon, thanks for hopping on, man. Really appreciate it. I know you guys are doing great things over there at on3.com. Appreciate you, bro.
Lots of automakers offer certified cleaning.
We're about to get all the 411, all the knowledge from Josh Tate about the new show that I know. His show was tremendous last night. There's no guest that comes on that I try to impress more than Josh Tate. I will tell you that I'm working hard at Way to Wellness, our journey to healthy living at PlaYingForMe.com or PlaYingForMe.com, just so when I see Tate at SEC Media Days, he will say, man, Dunaway, you have shaped up. Way to go, man. You don't look round anymore. You've got a little bit more of a manly figure. Maybe you won't use those words. But you can get looking better with our friends at Way to Wellness at PlaYingForMe.com. No contract, no sign-up fee, and the first consultation is absolutely free at PlaYingForMe.com.
You should probably know Pink Spelling Game.
That's right. And I think Tate knows by now, somebody's always this awkward.
Doug, are you the kind of person who relies on the external motivation? Do you need thousands? Do you need me to tell you you still got a lot of work to do?
Are you kidding me?
To win, then
No. I am that. I need all the external motivation, and I look at scoreboards. I do all the bad stuff. All the external things bother me.
okay, so I can do the doubt. There was a certain college football playoff head coach like who I texted every game with and told that he was terrible, his team was hopeless, and he was going to lose, and they ended up making the playoffs. So it can work. I've already tested the theory. It can work.
Brett Lashley.
That's exactly correct.
I mean, who's it, 1 and 12?
I used to tell Dunaway on when he was hosting the Nick Saban show, I was like, if that man knew how much you were affected by external factors there. Even if somebody smaller
He wasn't even associated with the program. I can't have this guy around. Yeah, well, he eventually did. It was after the Texas loss. He was on the show in August. I was bragging about having my handicap finally get down to 9.8 in the August show. And then I was on the coaching show after he lost to Texas. And the commercial break, I was like, ever since I bragged to you about the 9.8, I've shot in the 90s every time. What do you think's wrong? He goes, it's your mind. He goes, you hit a back on a hole 1 or 2, and you're thinking, well, today's not going to be a 79, is it? And I was like, that's exactly what's happening. He told me this from the area, but he basically was coaching me up that the external factors aren't good. Roy's got a little bit of that. McElroy does, doesn't he, Pete?
I got worried yesterday when he was walking off 17. He had that look where he looked back at the scoreboard, and I screenshotted, past tense screenshot, and I was worried that was going to end up being his iconic external factor, like,
All right, let's talk about what happened over the weekend. And you said on your show,
that this is nothing new for the Amaleva family, that even going back to pre-Ohio State game last year, they were wanting a new NIL contract, and it finally came to a head this weekend.
Yeah, so he's not the only one. There were many different, you can call them players, I would call them representatives of players, normally not the player himself, but they looked at a situation that was jacked up. They took advantage of the jacked up situation. And, the way it was explained to me, Brownie, is just egregious, but like this is the way it is. They looked at their current deal in hand, and then they looked at the fact that they were in the playoffs. This is not just Nico's fault, let me stress that. And they said, well, we kind of look at it as we were getting paid X amount of money for a season. But now that we're in the postseason, don't we deserve more? And then there's no one standing around and saying, no, you can't do that. No, that's against the rules. Everything goes. You can do whatever you want to. It's like a third NIL style. So they exercise their right to go and ask for more money. Now, here's the part we don't know. Would anyone have actually held out for playoff game? That's obviously the leverage you're relying on. It's unspoken in the room. But if we're in the playoffs at Kate State, and Lance is my starting quarterback, he comes to me before game week and says, I need more money. Obviously, what he wants me to think is, oh, yeah, I need more money, and I'm supposed to fill in the blank. But it didn't happen that way this past cycle. But it does go to show you that if you're already on that kind of slippery slope, if you're already in the first few cycles of this whole new world, in a world where people are thinking, if we make playoff, we can use that as leverage to get more money, and then we'll do it again after spring. Obviously, that's untenable. And there's still this vocal but vast minority over in the corner saying, no, this is the system working exactly as it's supposed to. This is the way free markets work. Well, piss on that when it comes to college football, then. So that's not how college football is supposed to work. That's not how it's supposed to operate. And I've just so radically shifted lately in talking about this, and I'm a lot more unapologetic about it. And I just outright admit, my motivation is not the best interest of any one football player or athlete. My motivation is what is the best interest of college sports overall, long term. So I'm rooting for whatever is in the best interest of college sports, and whatever it is, this is not it.
So Nico's old enough to fight for our country, Pete. So I think he is old enough to bear some of the responsibility. I do feel bad for some of these kids because I think the dad, the uncle, the agent, all these guys are getting involved and telling them what they need to do. I don't know anything about Nico, so like behind the scenes, I don't know how much you've heard, how big of a character guy he is. Is he a guy his teammates like? But even outside of that, I know they went to a playoff this year, but he averaged 200 yards passing per game, which is a small number. He's got 6'6" size. You can't coach that. He's got a lot of upside, but how good of a quarterback are they losing? And do you know anything personally about Nico, like behind the scenes? Is he a good team guy? I know that sounds like a weird question to ask based on the fact that he's no longer there in April, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, so I want to go in order of what you said there. You're right. He's a legal adult, and so it's neither of the two extremes. The two extremes are totally blame the kid, and the other extreme is, well, it's not his fault. He didn't know any better. It's neither of those. It's obviously somewhere in between. The tact that I've taken is it just kind of sucks that you're put in this position where you're making these decisions that you're so ill-informed to make. You're 19, whatever years old. If you were 38 years old and you have full hindsight at your disposal, of course you tell your dad or your representative, get lost. I'm going to make this choice for myself. It's the first time around, and it'll be the only time around for anyone in this position. So, yeah, it sucks, but you do have to manage your own affairs better than that, ill-equipped though you may be. What kind of quarterback is he, to me, is very, very much still incomplete. I think you and I both know when you pay 7 figures for a quarterback, you're not paying for him to be a freshman All-American. You'd love for that to happen. Michigan would love for Bryce Underwood to be a freshman All-American. They're playing the long game with them. They're thinking 2026, 27, 28. And I think that was what Tennessee was doing with Nico. And, of course, after a situation goes south, everybody at the program that views itself as being scorned has a motivation to paint someone in a negative light. So you're going to hear some stories come out about him over the past 72 hours and paint a less than glowing image of him. I don't know that personally. I've never known him to be a bad character guy. I've never known him to be a bad locker room guy. I'd only heard good things about him up until this past week. So I'm going to dismiss that as anecdotal sour grapes because I don't know any better. But what I will say is, so how do you look at this? Like if you guys are general managers at various programs around the country, I got asked this by a GM 2 days ago, the reason I'm presenting it this way. They said, we may, in the normal world, pursue him if he were just available. But we view him as radioactive right now. The whole situation is radioactive. We don't want to touch it. We think it would divide our locker room if we brought him in. We don't want to bring the dad or the representation in, the whole helicopter parent scenario. We just don't want anything to do with that. Which is why I look at it, and I think the best thing that could happen for him right now is if those who were representing him took the arrows publicly and stepped up and said, it's on us, we messed this up, we're the bad guy, he didn't really have anything to do with it, he trusted us, and we misrepresented him. Because at least that gives him a fighting chance to restore his image, and at least that gives him a fighting chance to go play somewhere else and not be viewed the same way that like a heel pro wrestler is viewed. Because right now, that's almost the way it feels like he'd be treated no matter where he landed.
Yeah, Nico old enough to fight for our country and also old enough to accept deals for our enemy to fight against us if he chose to do so. I agree with you. I think he, at this point, would be one of the most hated guys in college football. That fans would cheer against him in college football. Am I wrong about that? He is the heel of college football, as you said.
Yeah, he's the face of something that a lot of people have been turned off by. That's what he is. And so you're not going to change that by just going and committing somewhere and working hard and keeping your mouth shut, because the die is already cast. And that's why, like, I'm looking around at the people who are probably mostly responsible for this mess becoming what it is to begin with. Your image, frankly, doesn't matter right now because you're not the player. So you can afford to be the bad guy. You can afford to step out front and take the arrow, so to speak. I don't know if they're going to do that. I don't know if anyone around him has the foresight to do that, but they ought to do that. Because there is nothing left that can enhance his value if status quo remains the same. I don't even know if he goes and succeeds somewhere else. If he ever becomes a feel-good story. And by the way, guys, that's if he has everything together from the perspective of playing the position. There was still a lot to be desired about his on-field play. Even if he was at Tennessee this year, there was still a lot of question marks around him. So I can't help, anytime this kind of stuff happens, I can't help but fast forward 20 years and ask myself, what is this person thinking about the way his career panned out and how many different roads he would have liked to have gone down. We all play that game in our lives. It's just most of us weren't in position to generate generational wealth off our athletic ability at age 19.
Josh Pate hosts Josh Pate's College Football Show every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. You can see it on his YouTube channel. Go follow him on social media at Josh Pate CFB, at Josh Pate CFB. He's on the Shannara Hotline, the Alexander Shannara Trial Attorneys Hotline. In the Josh Pate Football Show opinion, Dan Lanning's participation in this story is what?
That I've heard rumors of. I have not reached out to confirm that, but I think either Lanning or someone associated with Oregon sort of sent up the flare here. And if that's true, and I don't know that it is, but if it is true, I appreciate it. And if it is true, it reflects a lot of the sentiment I've gotten from being out on the road all spring. I hadn't gone to Oregon this spring, but I've gone to over a dozen major programs this spring, and that has sort of been the sentiment from a lot of staffers, specifically head coaches, of looking around and saying, yeah, we want to compete, and yeah, we may hate these dudes on the field of play, but it is past time to work together to regulate this ourselves. And regulate this. Because really, aside from a few rogue exceptions to the rule, most of the coaches want the guardrails. Most of the coaches actually don't like it being the way it is, and half of them even participate in it, knowing, well, I've either got to get my program as it is right now or get drowned by it. But all things equal, they love to rein it in. And then the follow-up question, I won't even make anyone in their waste of breath to ask you is, well, aren't they so much culpable for us even going down this road to begin with? Sure, I don't know anyone in the room that's totally blameless on it. if Lanning did what they're saying he did, and he sort of tipped off everyone that Nico was sniffing around, or Nico's representatives were sniffing around, good for Dan Lanning, because I can tell you that's not the only program, if it happened, that Nico's folks had engaged behind the scenes, shall we say, last year.
Okay, so everybody believes the SEC is a non-factor when we're talking about destination. I spoke to somebody this morning, and they are well versed in this space. They said they talked to somebody at CAA, and they said if Nico was our client and you wanted to go in conference, we would sue to file an injunction, and we would see where this thing goes. Do you think ultimately something like this happens? Is there any chance, in your opinion, that he could go to one of 15 other institutions in the SEC?
Yes, I do think so. Having no specific knowledge of it, yeah, I think so. What you just said, extrapolated out, that's my view on any rule right now. I assume no rules are enforceable. I just assume that there are some people haven't challenged legally yet. So if we were to wake up this morning and randomly he's on to Ole Miss or A&M, I'm just throwing out names there. Initially, we would say, well, that makes no sense. He's not allowed to go there. But then we would think, is he not allowed to go there because the paper says it, or is he not allowed to go there because of an actual rule that's enforceable? But then the follow-up glance could be this: what if he transfers to an SEC program and everyone says, "Ooh, he's not eligible to play this year," and they say, "Yeah, we know. He probably needs a year to develop behind our guy anyway." Kind of the way Dante Moore did last year. You know, he starts for UCLA one year, then he goes to Oregon, and you don't see him at all last year because he needed a year to develop, and now he's going to start for Oregon this year. I could see that playing out. But yeah, I agree with you, man. If I ran an agency, I'm not looking after the best college athletics at that point. I'm just looking after the best interest of the client. If I want him to land in the conference, I'll land him in the conference, and then I'll fight it.
Can you afford to pay this guy to back somebody up, though?
They're paying $2 million to be a redshirt 1 year.
Yeah, I know, but I guess, but I think Tennessee thought that was the future. But I guess you're going to get 1 year out of him. I don't know.
My mom was my best friend.
What would you run?
My marathon. It's for the American Heart Association. In honor of a life, that means the world to me.
What would you like the power to do? You want high-performance, long-lasting, affordable tools. You want Harbor Freight tools.
If you choose to be challenged, the sky isn't the limit. It's just the beginning. Find your next level at ArmyCivilianCareers.com.
I guess, but I think Tennessee thought that was the future. But I guess you're going to get 1 year out of him. I don't know.
Well, how much do you trust your evaluation of him? How much do you actually have to pay him? For all we know, the market is $800,000 for him right now. I mean, I know what they were chasing. I know the figure they were chasing, but you may want to go out on the street corner and make $4 million a day. I know your worth on the street. It's decent, but it's not $4 million. And so maybe that's what he commands.
If you could write this headline, where would be the most controversial spot for him to end up? Georgia, Alabama.
I think so. It wouldn't be controversial for him to land at North Carolina. It would just be an eyebrow raiser because it would be the whole fellowship thing. I think what you just said would be the most controversial. Well, I'll tell you one thing that would be controversial is if it were Oregon, but Oregon doesn't need it. That would be if Lanning set up a player to piss everyone off and said, and we'll take him anyway. Yeah. But I think what you said would be the most controversial if he landed at an SEC program, because the minute we saw that headline, we would know. Like if he went to Florida or if he went to Alabama or Georgia, we would know immediately someone thinks they can circumvent this rule, and now that's what the rest of June and July and August is going to be filled with headlines about.
And when baiting the trap and then harvesting the prey, that would be unbelievable. There are people that still believe that this House resolution, when it's passed, will solve all these problems. How naive is that?
If you think that any move is going to solve all the college football problems, I think in general that's naive. I've shifted my view so radically on this. I've shifted my opinion, my personal preference so radically on this over the last couple of years because I'm the guy who forever banged the drum. I don't want federal intervention in college athletics. Keep Congress as far away from college athletics as possible. But the more I look at all these available options, the more I think that's the best. Now, I'm in the minority. I acknowledge that. Those people in our business,
Then get rid of the
they think you just need to make them employees and then
cannons.
collectively bargain, and that's the route you go down. I personally am not willing to accept the collateral damage that does to the rest of college athletics. That's just me. That's the way I feel about it. And so, I don't know if you guys noticed Delvin with the story last night from Yahoo Sports, kind of buried under all the noise about Nico in Tennessee, but he said, bipartisan. They're probably as close to getting a deal right now, a law, as they've ever been, and it would give limited legislation to be able to enforce the House government if it is codified, and it would also include not classifying athletes as employees. And here's the thing, Conway, I don't know if you've noticed this, no players are complaining about the current state of college athletics. It's all else claiming to represent the players. The players are about to make a ton of money no matter what. Like, they got it good no matter what. What's in the best interest of college, not just football, college athletics overall? I think that's the way. And I never would have said that a year and a half, 2 years ago.
But hell, Josh, the NBA, I mean, there are guys who are going to be late first round guys who are coming back to college because they can make more money. I'm sure the NFL guys are sitting there going, man, if we didn't have this NFL PA, if we had this college set up, I could be making more money than I'm making right now. It's insanity. These kids in college have no rules compared to what the NFL and the NBA kids have.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the other thing, we talked about this on the show before, but now that it's getting closer to reality, I'll tell you behind the scenes what a lot of programs are hoping to exist, and that is in the revenue sharing system. If I'm at Alabama and I'm a freshman, the system in a perfect world would be set up to where I'm guaranteed more if I stay here as a sophomore, and then more as a junior, and more as a senior. It's just an elevated earning system that incentivizes me to stay in Tuscaloosa. It doesn't prohibit me from leaving. You don't outlaw the portal because that'll always be illegal. You can't restrict movement. What you can do is heavily incentivize through your new structure of revenue sharing guys staying put. And you can work language in there of what happens if someone's head coach leaves. You can do all that. No one's against that. But I just think it would greatly cut down on the roster churn if guys were merely guaranteed, even for the 52nd guy on the roster, there is good six-figure earning potential for me here if I just stay here. Even if I'm not starting, if I'm on the roster, if I stay here, I'm going to earn.
The NBA has that though, Brownie. They have, you can get more money by staying with your team instead of going with free agents.
But the other side of that too, Pete, is if there is some sort of financial compensation on the other side, so whoever lands Nico owes Tennessee whatever's in that contract, you'll slow tampering down because I better want him if I got him in the portal because I've got to pay for him.
Well, I'm all for that. I'm really all for the reciprocal, basically player care is what we're talking about. I'm all for the reciprocal payment, especially for the G5 and FCS level. Because what happens to those guys is the most correct. They do the job. They evaluate and recruit properly, and then they work their tail off to develop a guy for 2 years, and then after spring, Ohio State has a need, and so they just come and pluck it to maybe not even start for it, but just to get on their QBs, and then come December, that staff still gets judged off their win-loss record. Even though they're 5-7 because they did such a good job, all their starters were in demand, and they couldn't do anything to hold on to it.
All right, he is Josh Pate. Josh Pate's College Football Show is excellent. You guys love it. Continue to give him thumbs up. Make sure you set your alerts. Subscribe to his YouTube channel. You can find the links to do all of that at Josh Pate CFB, at Josh Pate CFB, or just go to YouTube and search the Josh Pate College Football Show. Always a fun time talking with you. Again, congratulations on the upcoming nuptials. It'll be a fall wedding, we know, but we hope it will be soon.
Yeah, that's at least one win I can give you this morning. I appreciate it.
Hey, Pete, real quick, the documentary Joplin, Missouri on Netflix, the tornado documentary, is it good?
All right, you should have asked me this 10 minutes ago.
Right.
I might
Because I started it. I watched like the first 3 minutes, and I couldn't decide whether or not I wanted to devote that kind of time to it.
Everyone in the storm chasing community loves it. I don't like it at all. I think it's very sensationalized. And the thing about an EF5 tornado is you don't have to sensationalize that. You can just tell the story of it. I don't need some chick with an eyebrow ring telling me she found herself in the eye of a tornado. Because I kid you not, that is something that is said in this documentary. Still for a second. And we looked up and we realized we were in the eye. This is not Hurricane Opal, people. It's a tornado. There is no calm eye of a tornado. So that's my reason. 1 star at best.
I'm glad I shut it down.
You got one. Hey, by the way, I'm available to actually do the nuptials. What state are you going to do it? I'll make sure I'm available. Georgia?
Are you even legally allowed in Biloxi, Mississippi after that incident in 97 at Lower
Oh, if you're doing it in Mississippi, then no. I can't. I'm not allowed back in the casino.
All right, Peyton, thank you very much. Always good talking to you, buddy.
See you guys.
All right, Josh Payne with us on the Alexander Star Trial Attorney Hotline. Josh Payne, CFP on social media.
New Lavender Lysol gives your casa the same Lysol disinfection you trust, but now it has a scent that'll make you move. Effortlessly kill 99.9% of germs. With new Lysol Brand New Day Lavender, it'll leave a scent you'll love. Lavanda your casa with Lysol.
Get 2.9% APR for 60 months on the 2025 Cadillac Lyriq.
Nico just made a huge mistake, and I'm about to tell you why Tennessee should have everyone's respect.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in this, the greatest sport on planet Earth, however crazy it may be. All Nico chatter day because there's so much to get to. This episode brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money, because you want to take control of your finances, right? That's what you do with Monarch Money. Use code Locked On College at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. So this escalated really quickly. Ron Burgundy in Anchorman style.
Oh, man.
That escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast. Brick killed a guy. All right, no one's dead here except Nico's career as a Tennessee Volunteer, which is crazy. He was just in the playoff. They just went 10-2, and he went and wanted more money in NIL. Tennessee said, no, okay, let's start with the Nico angle on this. He is going to be worse off. Whether this is his decision, whether this is a decision made by people around him that are advising him to do this, that, and the other thing, I don't care. The end result, he is going to be worse off. The most likely destination, not the only one certainly, the most likely destination for now the highest rated, not just player in the transfer portal, but quarterback as well, the only one with real starting experience at a high level, is UCLA. Okay, UCLA's win total in the Big Ten is tied for the lowest at 4.5, or among the lowest at 4.5. That's not a place that you are going to, and that Nico is just going to suddenly elevate. By the way, is he going to get as much money as he was seeking? Tennessee was giving him $2 million a year. They put their foot down and said, no, we're not going up to 4. Nico and his camp wanted 4 per year. Is UCLA going to do that? Is that a worthwhile endeavor? I don't know. Here's what I do know. You're not going to UCLA, and even if they give you the money, you are not going to enjoy playing football as much. That is a fact of life. Nico is not the sort of player that goes, and right now in his career, is going to just change a program. It's going to just be inserted like Cam Ward was down at Miami, where he shows up and all of a sudden it's the best season of Mario Cristobal's career. They're pushing for a playoff spot. You're not doing that at UCLA. You don't have the roster to go toe-to-toe with everybody in the Big Ten. Sure,
he'd make UCLA better, or heck, USC could be an option as well, depending on how they feel on Jaden Mayava. He could make both of those teams potentially better. He does not make them as good as Tennessee would have been this past year. So, and by the way, I don't suspect that USC is quite as interested as UCLA based on what I've heard. Look, I'm all fired up about this. I'm banging my desk. I mean, it's just, this is crazy. It's absolute insanity. So, when Nico went into the portal, my first thought was, what's he doing? Why is it? And the answer is he wants more money. Well, if you're going to go somewhere that's just wanting to give you the money, I hope there's another team there that you're going to be surrounded by that'll make you a better football player and who you make better. He might make them a little bit better, but we saw this past year. He had elite receivers, a great running game, an elite top 10 defense in all of college football. And he was under 200 yards passing in about half of his games. His progression was perfectly set up at Tennessee. Same system where he sat for a year coming out of high school, started this past year, showed glimpses, like every single career trajectory to succeed at quarterback was lining up for Nico. And now he's going to go somewhere else where he's got to learn a new system. He's got to get along with new teammates. He's got to vibe with new coaches. Like, this is not going to end well. So I'm not commenting here on who is influencing him or whether it's him making the decision. Don't care. He, from a football standpoint, is going to wind up worse off because he is leaving Tennessee. He is going to wind up worse off. So that's the first part. Here's the second part. I respect what Tennessee just did here. I have been waiting to see when this move was going to arrive from a Power 4 school, and Tennessee's the first one to do it. I give them props. The discussion around college players and getting paid nowadays is all about, well, it's just pro sports. It's semi-pro. It's just like okay. So this was essentially a contract negotiation and holdout, which you see in the NFL all the time. You see it all over the place. So-and-so's not at practice today because he is waiting to see if he gets a bigger contract. And sometimes teams say, yeah, we're going to send you out of town because we don't think you're worth the amount of money that you are asking us for. And by the way, I understand that there are some players and quarterbacks out there in the portal that might be overpaid. Darian Mensah at Duke could be a really good quarterback. One good year at Tulane to $4 million a year, which is what he's reportedly getting in NIL for 2 seasons at Duke. Yeah, that's probably a little bit inflated. And I felt that, not just with college football, but college basketball or a variety of other sports. Like, man, is this guy really worth it? Is this player worth that amount of money? It feels like there has to be a course correction. This could be the start of it. Tennessee could be making a move that sets off a snowball effect across the rest of college football, where schools will be willing to see, if Tennessee's willing to do this with their starting quarterback who just had them in the playoff competing for a national championship, then other teams might be willing to do it for, I don't know, any position on their roster where they say, no, we have a lot of NIL money, but it's not unlimited. And we're about to be paying $20 million a year with revenue from the school because of the house settlement. It's a lot of money. It's not unlimited. We have to be smart about how we budget it. And Tennessee put their foot down, number one, and said, we don't think you're worth that sort of money. I think they are right based on the performance he's had so far. I think he could be worth $4 million after he performs at that level, but that's typically how it goes. Kirk Cousins got all that money. Why? Because he threw for all of those yards. Because he had some proven production. Was he overpaid? Sure. But he got it because his agent's able to get that deal because he can say, look at how many yards he just threw for. Look at what he has done. You'd be paying Nico based on, we think you're capable of that. But you're not giving a guy $4 million a year in NIL for what you think he can be. You are paid in professional sports based on your proven production. Rookie contracts are cheaper. Why? You haven't done anything yet. Once you prove it, then you go out. Think about a guy like Penei Sewell to choose a non-quarterback position, but it certainly can apply to any quarterback spot. Trevor Lawrence, for instance, was he worth it? I don't know. Maybe not for the Jacksonville Jaguars, but, or Caleb Williams with the Bears. Like, those guys go out and you play out your rookie contract, and then the organization decides, yeah, we think you are worth investing in the maximum amount, or maybe we don't think you are. What those guys are paid on your second contract, that's what everyone always talks about in the NFL. It's not your first contract you get paid. big money, it's your second contract. And your second contract comes because your rookie contract years, you look back and go, oh, he was underpaid for the production he gave. You wouldn't say that about Nico right now. There's no way that you would say that. So I applaud Tennessee for saying we're not going to overpay, and we're also not going to be held hostage by a contract negotiation here. We have a program we want to build, a culture we want to establish, and we're trying to go out and win football games. If you don't feel like this is the best place for you to do that, I thought Josh Heupel's comments were a 10 out of 10. There's nothing bigger than the power T. I won with other quarterbacks, sounded like an adult in the room. I'd be really happy to have him as my head coach right now if I were a Tennessee fan. But I tell you what, the organization just coming down and saying, hey, we're not going to, the university, athletic department, however you want to see it, them saying, hey, we are not going to just give in no matter what, just because. That might be a trend-setting move in college athletics. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit me up on Twitter. All that good stuff. Where does Tennessee go? Where does Tennessee have any sorts of options? Can they even be a playoff team? I don't know. But I know a guy who does. First, this episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment? It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just spending your money and managing it. You start building wealth. That's what you want to be trying to do. All-in-one convenience is what they're all about. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year, monarchmoney.com. So what on earth happens next? Eric Kane of Locked On Balls is here to discuss just that. So Nico, starting quarterback, gone. Eric, what else is on Tennessee's roster? Is this still a playoff viable team in your view?
I mean, you got to sit back and kind of regroup and think about things. You already came into the offseason with questions about the offensive line, at receiver, and now you take out Nico Iamaleava, your starting quarterback, who, sure, was a bust? Absolutely not. Underperformed based on where he was ranked and the hype and all that last year. I'll give you that. His career's not over. I still think he's going to be very, very good. I think he's got all the talent in the world, but you take that off your team now, so that's just another big question, the most important position in all sports. In terms of playoff, in terms of winning games and all that, these are some shows that I'm going to do this week for sure. Content galore. But Tennessee still has a really good defense. Tennessee, I think offensive line-wise will be just fine. I love Tennessee's running backs. I think those small and
well, I get for not paying attention.
Tennessee's wide receivers are going to be pretty solid. But yeah, this is still going to be a pretty good team. Tennessee's got to find a quarterback that honestly can manage it all, right now, and then kind of go from there. And I think that's possible. I think that's doable. You're probably going to ask me about this. They got 2 quarterbacks on the roster right now. One is Jake Merklinger, who I think had 6 pass attempts last year, like he was a third string. Redshirt freshman coming up, and he's had a fantastic spring, really good spring. Been talking about him all spring, really, before all this defense stuff happened. Does that mean he's ready to roll and he's going to be going for 300 yards a game in the fall? I wouldn't say that, but he has had a good spring, but he just doesn't have any experience. And you have an early enrollee, true freshman quarterback in George McIntyre, who, the game's spin for him right now. He had a really good day in the orange and white game, the spring game, over the weekend, but everything's very new to him. So Tennessee's going to have to go to the portal. He's going to have to go find a quarterback and the conversation. More than anything, just have body because you only have 2 starters and QBs in the room right now. So is this still a playoff team? I don't know. That's a conversation I'm going to have. I don't know the answer to that right now. Certainly, I think FanDuel took Tennessee down from 9.5 to 8.5. So I would probably say no right now.
So I look at what this situation brings to the table, and last year, you and I have talked about this before, and this was the narrative around Nico coming into the season is, can he take a step forward? Because maybe your defense will be good, maybe your run game will be good, but will it be dominant like it was last
That's all I
year?
had it.
Probably not. So you need more out of that quarterback position, and you've got a couple of young guys who, as you said, don't have a lot of experience, but when you look at the transfer portal market for quarterbacks right now, Eric, it's pretty slim. I don't see an option as for all the flaws that Nico has, and you can point those out. That's fine. Who's in the portal, right? James Rashada. Who's no, that's not a thing. You go from a crazy NIL. That's just.
Well, that would be quite the pivot. That would be quite the pivot.
That would be quite the pivot to go from one of the craziest NIL recruitments to the craziest NIL influence recruitment in recent memory, or maybe of all time in college football. So, but when you look at the portal, where do you even go? Who do you look to? Are you trying to pull somebody else's starting quarterback right now, or are you scouring message boards? Not message boards, the coaching staff, but are you physically scouring message boards to figure out, hey, which guy is going to lose his starting quarterback job and suddenly transfer, and then Tennessee can go get him?
I mean, I'm not saying that Tennessee's going to do this or whatever, but let's not sit there and act like players can't be reached out to and spoken to, who are not in the portal. Let's go about third parties and agents and all that. You have agents who are shopping around their players regardless whether they even jump in the transfer portal. My point is, there will be quarterbacks who jump in the portal here when it's officially open. Any of them to the caliber of Nico Iamaleava? No, heck no. Why? Because it's April, 14th. It's April 14th, okay? Who in their right mind thinks they have a great opportunity to go and win a starting job and to play at the caliber that they need to play in a Power 4, specifically the SEC, to try to knock on the door to the college football playoffs if you want to transfer on April the 14th? That just doesn't make sense, okay? This is not the December window. This is the April window. So, yeah, there's nobody in the transfer portal right now. Having said that, spring practice just wrapped up. Obviously, Nico is a massive domino, okay? It's a massive domino in the college football landscape. Could there be some guys that maybe jump in the portal and or jump in with a no contact tag on or something? I don't know. We'll see. But, Tennessee will, I don't think it matters who it is. Tennessee will have to get one quarterback in the transfer portal regardless. And you hope that it's a guy who will come in and compete and really push Jake Merklinger and try to win that job, and that'd be awesome. But regardless, Tennessee doesn't have a choice. They have 2 scholarship quarterbacks, so I don't care if it's the loudest rated guy in the portal in the quarterback rankings. Like, he's coming to Tennessee if need be, because they've got to add somebody to that room.
So right now, according 24/7, with the portal open on Wednesday, by the way, we'll see which signal callers wind up changing school, or maybe you try to find a quarterback who is already somewhere and you try to get him to pull Bill O'Brien at Ohio State. Hey, I know you said you were going there, but we're kind of a more attractive option over here because Bill O'Brien was going to be an OC at Ohio State. Instead, he's the head coach at Boston College. They did all right last year. The highest rated quarterback in the portal, not named Nico Iamaleava, is Jaden Rashada, according to 24/7 Sports. Then it's Aiden Glover, who's transferring from Missouri. James Rassard, who's transferring from Iowa. Dylan Riss, transferring from UCF. Trevor Jackson, transferring from Florida State. Those are the 5 highest rated guys available, according to 24/7. Tate Rodemaker, one-time Florida State Seminole, he's in the portal. There are no names. Like, there's not a clear-cut option out there. So, man, you go out and find a guy. Is it worth bringing in a transfer who is just going to compete and he's not really a starting caliber guy? Like, there's a real scenario where a month from now we feel like Tennessee is almost kind of punting on the season, right? If neither of the young guys, I know you said one of them is having a really good spring, but if they feel, I don't know, it's not really going to be there, like, could this be a 6-win season for Tennessee?
Oh, God. Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, Jake Merklinger can go in here.
Just check.
He can go hand the football off and beat probably Mississippi State by 10, right? I mean,
there's no Mississippi State slander on this show, Eric. Mississippi State is going to beat, I have been saying this for months, they're beating someone that nobody thinks they should this year. Look out, Vols. Look out.
That might be hyperbole, but my point is, again, this roster, like, it's
this roster is really good. This defense will be really good. Tennessee's got playmakers. Tennessee, again, the offensive line I think is going to be pretty good. The running back room is diverse. There's a lot of guys. There's different type of bodies in there. No, I mean, Tennessee absolutely won't punt on this season. I know they physically wouldn't be trying to, like, throw the season or anything, but Tennessee, again, like, it doesn't have a choice. It has to get another quarterback body. So, again, whether it is always ranked quarterback in the portal when it's all said and done, or, you know, somebody jumps in the portal and they get him or whatever, if it's somebody that's going to come in and compete and have a real chance of starting, or if it's somebody that's just going to come in and be nothing but depth. I mean, Tennessee, at minimum, has got to just get one guy just to get a body. Now, again, spring just wrapped up, you know, for everybody for the most part, right? And, you know, or spring is still ongoing, but the transfer portal is opening this weekend. I mean, you've got backup quarterbacks sitting in places around the country saying, man, this is BS. I want to play. What's going on? I'm not getting paid anything. I'm not getting the field. This is, you know, the coach hates me. And then you see Nico leave Tennessee, and they're probably been like, hey, see if they have the interest in me. See if they have the interest in me. I mean, that's how these things work. And so there's going to be a lot of guys that come in the portal. But again, nobody to the level, nobody to the magnitude of a Nico Iamaleava. So it's going to be interesting for sure. But no, to put it bluntly, Tennessee will get somebody from the portal. Whether he comes in and starts, I have no clue. But they will get somebody from the portal. And again, no, like, you're not punting on this team. Now, it's very fair to say, well, I had Tennessee kind of on the brink maybe of the college football playoff team. Now, absolutely not. That's fair. Absolutely fair. But this team is too talented for a 6 game.
So, last thing, Eric, I like what Josh Heupel said a lot in the midst of all this. And he's in a tough position, right? How much control does he have over it when you've got a collective involved or anybody who might be Nico's ear? We have no idea, really. Like, it's a difficult position for a head coach to be. Like, when you see veteran head coaches in college basketball or college football or college sports in general step aside and say, I'm retiring now, this right here, this is the perfect example as to why. His situation, mostly beyond his control, just lost to the starting quarterback. Like, he's got to throw it. I thought he came out and made a great decision.
He was phenomenal the other day. I mean, that was, and right now, the time of this recording, and it's never going to stay like this, right? But you've got the Tennessee football fan base that's unified right now. It's, oh, he don't want to be here. Long be gone. Get out of here, man. Just, you know, line to the sand. Not going to go over. We're going to go to Josh Heupel. Tennessee's not going to take that. I mean, that's great. Like, I'm not trying to make fun of it. That's awesome. Like, the fan base right now is unified, and enough is enough, right? And this is why it's kind of an interesting conversation. You and I can both have it at a later date. Nico was the poster child for NIL. He's now potentially the course corrector, because this is the first time now for a player of his magnitude where a Power 4 team that was just in the CFP said, nope, we're out.
Not worth it.
No, we're not worth it. And for that reason, I'm out. And so, you know, it's interesting to see if anybody else will follow this in the years to come. But anyway, what was the question again?
Just talking about Josh Heupel.
Oh, yeah, Josh.
I thought he did great.
He thanked Nico. Genuinely, I mean, I think he likes him. Nico's a good kid. I think Nico's a really good kid. I don't think this is all on Nico. I can tell you that. I think there are people around him that are, you know, helping urge and push. It's like all these guys. I mean, Nico's not a people behind the scenes. But I thought Josh Heupel was phenomenal the other day, saying nobody's bigger than the power team. And then he kind of got fired up a little bit, talking about the quarterbacks he's coaching years past, young guys, old guys, pocket passers, mobile guys. He kind of went on a little bit flux there, saying, I won a lot of games with a lot of different quarterbacks. I've lost quarterbacks in week 6. I've lost quarterbacks on day 1 of spring practice, on day 1 of fall camp, and I've rallied and gone on the win conference title. So, yeah, sure, you're at Tennessee right now, a little bit of a different situation, but he's a winner, he's a competitor, and I thought he handled the other day just about as well as anybody could handle given the circumstances. He was frustrated, but boy, did he say all the right things. And I think thanking Nico, like, thanks for your time being here, best of luck, is the right move. And I mean, it was
He looked like a head coach. He sounded like a head coach. He said what a head coach says, and I think that is going to win him a lot of points with the fan base when they come out and say, "Hey, we're still here. We're not going to throw up. We're not going to throw a fit. We're not going to start a, you know, verbal war on Twitter or anything like that." Nope. Okay, we got to go forward and see what is best. Eric Kane, Locked On Ball, is great as always. I still have more thoughts on this. And by the way, there's something totally insane, kind of outside this situation, but also related to it, that you've got to hear. First, this episode brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need, delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry.
Dang it.
So you'll always talk to a real person. For trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/PMStart or in plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. So now the quarterback market just feels like it has any number of possibilities in a given year. If Nico, who was just in the playoff and slated to be the starter by a lot, and transfer, who can't transfer? What is truly outside of the realm of possibility in today's world of college football? I don't know, but something I wanted to look back on because I saw this going around, and it's just worth noting that this is exactly what I'm talking about. So if you go back to the 2023 high school football recruiting class, oh boy, there were a lot of big names that came off the board at quarterback, as there are every single year. Here's where they wound up. The top 8 quarterbacks in the 2023 cycle. This is just 2 cycles ago from the class that just finished up, 3 cycles ago from the one everyone is working to complete right now. Arch Manning is still at Texas. He's the only person on this list that is at the same school he committed to coming out of high school. Nico is now in the portal. Dante Moore began at UCLA after flipping from Oregon. He's now back at Oregon, probably the starter in Eugene this fall. Jackson Arnold, not at Oklahoma anymore. He's at Auburn. Malachi Nelson, not at USC. He's at, can you name me the school? Can you name the school where Malachi Nelson might be the starting quarterback this fall? UTEP. Yeah. The Miners. That's where Malachi Nelson is. Pretty great. Jaden Rashada in the transfer portal. Aiden Childs, Michigan State, not Oregon State, went with his coach. Austin Mack did the same thing. Washington now down at Alabama, competing for the starting job with Ty Simpson and Keelan Russell, theoretically. So to see those guys have such disparate careers from where it looked like they are going to wind up, it's just emblematic of where college football is really at nowadays. Is that a good thing? I don't know. That depends on who you ask. For someone like me, hey, great content. I mean, the easiest content that I've had all spring, Nico, going into the transfer portal. But when I come across fans, and I came across one on the golf course just the other day, who are frustrated with college sports, disappointed that it's become so financially driven that it's semi-pro ball. It's not really about playing for the school. It's about what the school can do for you, not what you can do for the school. Those sorts of fans are just getting more fodder every single week. This is not something that, they're just cherry picking a select few examples. No, every year, every week it feels, every month. I mean, there are players that go in the portal like, wait, that guy? He
Oh, man. Oh.
And here comes the lag.
Dang it. Whoa. Oh. Dang it. Sorry, almost 10 o'clock.
Introducing the all-new Passport Transport, fully redesigned with available trail wash to help you conquer tough terrain. Our most capable modern unit.
The Meats family has finally gained a member. Meet Applewood Smoked Ham. Smoked is their middle name. 2 for $7, ham and Swiss melts. Arby's, we have the meat.
Oh, dang it. I should stabilize that. Dang it! I about messed up. Dang it. Da, 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 da. Aw. Let's see, what else do I need? Normal raid? You know what? Let's see. Oh, shoot. Oh, shoot. I'm gonna fight the boogeyman. Oh, I thought we killed him. Oh, man. How's everybody doing today? I'm curious. $16.02.
See a car, you can find it on Auto Trader. Even my TV detector car. Just put your info in the Kelly Blue Book My Wallet, browse personalized monthly payments from dealers in your area, then start and finish the deal online. Case closed.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We've all gotten good at stirring the pot. You know, maybe we find time for a little pot luck. Yes, bring those red beans with the andouille, bring pastas and kielbasas, and seriously, we all can't just get along for a few hours. That's a crime. You just gotta go gloves on, Johnsonville in, finger pointing off, and keep it juicy.
Wait, I hit non-stay for.
Welcome in the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Mike Bratton, or by SEC Mike on the Twitters. And there's our great friend, Stephen Lassen, senior editor over at Athlon Sports. Stephen, how are you, my friend?
Mike, I am happy to report no holdouts, no transfer portal action over here. I am 100% committed to that SEC podcast and excited to be talking some college football with you today, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, Shane's holding out. He's still at the Masters, I think. But glad that we got you here, Stephen. We'll go a little deep dive on all this Nico madness. We also got some concerning, well, we talked about it, and now Stephen is even more concerned about our friend DJ Lackley. Could be the best player in the country. Will he even suit up? We're going to talk about that. And we're going to go pretty heavy on all that stuff. But before we get into it, got to remind the cousins, Stephen, that we are brought to you by MyBookie. Head on over, mybookie.ag today if you haven't already. And put in that promo code, that SEC, THAT, SEC. You can see it on the screen there. And if you do that, any first-time customer, Stephen, that puts in that promo code, that SEC over at mybookie.ag, they're willing to give you a 50% instant deposit match today. I think there's even odds on where Nico will go. I wouldn't wager on that right now, to be perfectly honest. But there's going to be some good steals that we're going to pick up throughout the offseason on what you should be betting on when it comes to college football. So now's a good time to take advantage of this offer. But Stephen, I know we were just talking about it. They're trying to kill spring football, and they're doing a heck of a job. Any takeaways, and takeaways are even difficult to come up with because none of this is televised. Shout out Texas A&M that will be the only spring televised game we get. That's this weekend, I believe. So maybe we just do 3 hours on A&M next week. But any takeaways from any and all information that you gleaned over last weekend in the SEC with these spring games?
Yeah, Mike, I think maybe the takeaway here is actually kind of what you said, is that things have been unremarkable spring around the conference. And I think it's warning us that there's just not a lot of telling intel as to the use. I mean, I think some of the biggest intel of spring has been what's going on with all the quarterbacks. I mean, whether it's Nico or DJ Lagway or some of the others, Alabama, Ty Simpson, that's kind of been where the focal point is. But I also think it's been hard because a lot of these coaches don't know who's going to be on the roster come later this week. So you're not getting too in depth into actually, schematics and what you're working on. So I think my biggest takeaway has been, just sort of the uncertainty, the environment that we're in right now with the transfer portal coming up, figuring out where some of the strengths and weaknesses of this team is. We're still sorting through that. The one thing I have picked up on, and I know we'll talk transfer needs, is you go down the list of teams, and I came across a quote from Eli Drinkowitz, and I kind of came away with the impression that he must feel pretty good about his roster if he's kind of talking like this. So you kind of read between the lines on some of these coaches to try to figure out where they are right now, and I think that's kind of the takeaway, is that we're just starting to get the first pieces of kind of where and how we feel good about these teams for 2025.
Yeah, that's not to say that all the spring games are done. Florida set not a record, but most attended spring game they've had in like 16 years with over 50 some odd thousand. I think it was like 56,000 showed up for their game. Tennessee, they had a lot of their stadium. You couldn't access it because they're doing construction, but they had over 30,000 show up. So people are still going to these. But let me ask you this, Stephen: is the fact that these coaches are really kind of hampering what was a great activity in the spring, do you think that negatively affects fandom? You think that negatively affects development? Because that was something they always used to talk about, where you'd want to see these young players in a hostile environment for the first time, get them a taste of the fall. Do you think not having these games could hurt the sport in the long term?
I do. I mean, I think if I was a fan and I knew that you only had 6 or 7 opportunities to go in the fall, and that spring game was kind of an extra opportunity. It's cheaper. It's probably a little bit easier to get to. You can get some of the family and friends together. I mean, it's a missed opportunity. And you know, you mentioned the attendance at Florida. It's almost like in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, if you don't put these on TV, you get fans to the game. Well, give them something to watch. Give them some kind of scrimmage, which also plays into, I think, the idea that you and I have talked about a lot, which is let's do some scrimmages. Like, let's set these teams up. Let Florida play, Georgia Tech. Let Tennessee scrimmage Florida State or whoever. I know it's not going to be good on good. I mean, I've been to a lot of, I've been to a few NFL preseason games, and I know how this rodeo goes. But I do think, you want opportunities to see what your roster looks like. And we see quotes from coaches all the time when you get to the fall. We're tired of playing each other. We're tired of scrimmaging against each other. We want to hit somebody else. So to have an opportunity in the spring to cater to your fan base, to give fans something to look forward to, give the players a chance to get out there and see in live action against someone else or in a spring game situation, I think they're missing out. So I know there's always going to be really extremely paranoid coaches, and especially with the portal coming up. But I just think college football's missing something. I mean, what's the buzz been around spring games the last couple weeks? It's been nothing, right?
It is, and I blame Matt Rule. Stephen, I mean, this man in my mind has never allowed the coach in the SEC that's pulling these shenanigans and taking Nebraska. And apparently, according to him, I mean, they just have a roster full of gems that everybody's waiting to pick apart. Correct me if I'm wrong. That I mean, they haven't even gone to a meaningful bowl game. I don't even know when the last time Nebraska went to a bowl game.
They won the Pinstripe Bowl last year over Boston College.
Come on, Matt Rule. Nobody wants your pinstripe losers. You know what I mean?
Like, this gets back to sort of like the paranoia that you and I are talking about. And also, I think if you rethink the calendar a little bit and you look at the spring portal window and how spring football works, you could easily do something here. And to be frank about it too, I also have a really hard time believing that there would be mass exodus of players based on what we saw in spring game. How many times have you seen players that entered spring to play well in the spring game and they did nothing during the season? Most guys in first ringers used to be North Sellers, Throw Jackson Darts from the past, but they're not going to play a full first game in spring football. Come on, it's really about building your roster and showcasing your program in the spring game.
All right, so Stephen, let's get into it. There's not much we can say about the spring game unless we were there, and I'll just say I tried to finish off. It was not one 3-hour drive that I made down there, but I'm going to reach out to a lot of people all across the SEC, even 10 years doing it, reaching out to people that are going to spring games, and we're going to have those people on to share their insights on what they saw. I don't really know how to share what we've seen, but how about this? I mean, the story that has captivated college football the last 72 hours, whatever. Nico leaving Tennessee giving Nico the boot. However you want to phrase it. When you saw this, when you saw the dad come out here and the games being played, and then Nico didn't show up to practice on Friday, Tennessee making a decision thereafter to move on from him. What was your thoughts when you saw this as it played out?
Mike, I have to be honest with you. I thought we had the news on Thursday. I actually thought by Friday we had to do it. And it's sort of just the flying. We're going to be bringing not going to transfer, and something high profile. I think over the last 2 years, Peyton Thorne going from Michigan State to Auburn, probably the most high profile and the most successful one. Most of your quarterback movement happens in the fall, in the fall-winter window. So I think knowing all that, when I saw that news on Thursday, my instinct told me they will figure this out. And Tennessee there's just not another option for Tennessee to go to. Even if there's some hard feelings, you work it out for this year because he's a quarterback. I think once Friday got here and Nico missed the practice, I noticed immediately, and I was kind of scoping out the Tennessee message boards, there was an immediate turn. And I think the fan base turned on it, and I think at that point, Josh Heupel made the right call to part ways with him, however you want to word it. I think that was the right move for Tennessee. I did think it was going to get worked out when I first saw it, though.
Well, already we're seeing some reaction to it in terms of the over-under. Tennessee's over-under has dropped to 8.5. It was 9.5. What's your thoughts on that? Again, initially when this all broke, I said, well, I guess pay the guy his money, but I understand maybe there's a little bit more to it than that. And I know this is a tough thing to ask, but if Tennessee were to make another playoff run this year, which honestly I didn't think they were going to do with Nico, but let's say they bring him back, they pay him whatever the hell he wanted, and they make a run to the college football playoff, would it have been worth it in your mind to pay Nico if that was the end result?
I think you can make the playoffs easily. And I think you also get into a situation like it's probably just a one-year deal anyways, because what he redshirted his first year, played last year, played 2025, so he'd be going probably to the NFL draft, or he just moves on to another team. I thought Tennessee probably would not have been in my playoff projections with Nico. I think they would have been right there at 9-3, 10-2 level. I think it's going to be really hard for this team unless they can go out and get another quarterback in the portal, which is the big question in all this. The game at Alabama was probably put into the swing category just a few weeks ago. I think you probably put it solid. Alabama, Florida, probably a toss-up. Probably pretty solid Florida now. That's not even taking into account the game against Georgia. Also, pretty tricky game against Oklahoma too. So all of a sudden, I think Tennessee slides from playoff contender to probably being either somewhere in the back half of the top 25 or closer to that 7-8 win range right now.
And then vice versa, Stephen. If taking Nico off the team, whatever you want to say, and Tennessee goes, let's say 7-5, you think it was worth it to give him the boot?
I think there's kind of a case to be made that it's the worst thing that Tennessee could have done for 2025 specifically, but maybe in the long run it's better for the program, as weird as that sounds. And the reason why I go there is we've had some inklings in the transfer portal era where there was some, let's enter the portal, let's negotiate a good deal. Someone else on the team gets the same idea, and you play this cycle of you're constantly negotiating contracts. I think team chemistry becomes a problem at that point. And so I think you ran a real danger of not only that, but also, was Nico worth a $2 million raise based on the way he played last year? I know Carson Beck's getting $4. Maybe you could argue for a small bump. I don't know that I would have gone to Carson Beck territory. So I think it's a setback right now for Tennessee, but I think in the long run, I think in order to run the program the way that Josh Heupel wants and sort of set your values, essentially, it's the right move. And you can't have one player to miss a practice and then ask for more money. And at the same time, Mike, could you imagine what the reaction would have been in early September if he struggled against Georgia, and after all this, and to throw like 2 interceptions against Georgia, the fan base would have been even turned on him even more. It just kind of came to the point of it felt like no return there for Tennessee.
Yeah, and I think you're 100% there with, quite frankly, I think it's unfair to ask him for some money back, but they have paid him way more than he has delivered. And you got to remember, he was actually even getting paid as a senior in high school. It goes back that part. You were allowed to make money as a California high school athlete. You got paid the first year. He was MVP of the bowl game, but other than that, he made not a significant snap other than that I can recall. So he got paid multiple years for, at the end of the day, being a mid-level SEC player. Now, I certainly think it's easy to sit here and pick apart his game and what he hasn't done, what's your thoughts on this? Because I'm seeing it universally from Tennessee fans, which is no surprise. But I'm seeing it from other fans too. You know, just the common fan that I think is totally against guys like this holding out and demanding more money. But there's a popular belief that Tennessee on the field will be better without Nico. Honestly, I think that's kind of crazy, given where we're at in the calendar and how much time. Now, we don't know who they're going to add. We'll get to that in a little bit here. But is there any chance in your mind that Tennessee is better today without Nico on the roster?
I think it's hard to make a case that they're better. For all of his bad advice that he was getting, for all of maybe the internal tension that was there at Tennessee, Mike, you have a quarterback that was certainly top 10 in the SEC, certainly top 25 somewhere in college football. Those are really hard to find in the spring. And so Tennessee got to the playoffs last year on defense and running the ball. And they can do that again this year, but it's going to require a lot of those pieces to step up because of all the personnel departures. So a lot of their hopes this year were saying Nico's going to take that next step forward. It's going to help overcome the losses of Dylan Sampson and some of those guys on defense. So I think it was pretty reasonable to expect him to raise his game this year. And now you're asking two pretty inexperienced quarterbacks to carry more of the load. Maybe there's with the defensive run game can pick up the slack and sort of, galvanizes the team. I buy that, but man, you're talking about a top 25 quarterback who just lost in the quarter. Unless you can replace him with someone else of that value, it's hard to argue Tennessee's a better team.
Right, and again, it's probably unfair, but who said life was fair, Steve? I was at the spring game, and Jake Berkelinger, George McIntyre, I thought McIntyre looked better. It's very, very difficult to read into all that. It's all scripted. So many guys are out, but neither one of them looked anywhere near as good as Nico that I have seen in person. So, take that for what it's worth. But let's get into. Oh wait, I did want to ask you this.
Hey, Mike, I did have one thing I wanted to mention on that. I do think there is. Let's just hypothetically play a game where Tennessee doesn't add somebody. I would be willing to bet that both those quarterbacks are much more prepared when we come to play Syracuse and East Tennessee State the first 2 weeks of the season. I'm not saying Tennessee's going to beat Georgia, but I think given the friendly nature of Josh Heupel's offense and his track record of quarterbacks, they now have months to get ready for the season. And if there's anything, if I was a Tennessee fan, that would give me some confidence is if you don't add another starter caliber quarterback, I think Josh Heupel will figure something out to at least make this team not the bottom won't completely fall out offensively. If that makes sense.
No, I'm right there with you. But it's so difficult because they're breaking in new offensive linemen, new running backs, new receivers. Nico's going to be a steadying force. Now you don't even have that. But before we get into potential replacements or portal additions, final thing I wanted to ask you about all this. What if Steven Lasson had the power to fix all this, to ensure this doesn't happen, not just Tennessee, but across the SEC and across college football, what steps do you think need to be taken to where we can't, spring football is it as simple as getting rid of the second portal to where this can't happen?
I think that's a huge part of it. I also think you could argue some sort of contract or binding agreement, and legally there's a lot there to work through. And even then, that's been not necessarily the most binding thing as we've seen in this case and some other scenarios too. But I think you have to remove the spring window in spring football. Like you almost have to untangle the two, because how do you have a practice for 2025 not knowing who's going to be on the roster the next week? And we're still in the situation through the House of it has, and no one knows how many scholarship players are going to be allowed. It could be 85, it could be 105. Roster limits are still a question. So I think just use one little window and then have some sort of binding agreement contract legally, however that gets worked out.
out, then you get into a period of stability. Plus, some pretty common sense like transfer rules too. I like the idea of transferring once for free, once if you're restrictions, and once if you're aggressive. 3 times, I think that sort of brings some structure to the chaos.
And I heard Shane and Terry on the radio today, all 3 owners. He says that, none of this is going to get fixed until they blow up the system. And I think what he's driving at here is they're trying to stick to this amateurism model. And you're fooling yourself if you think this is, it's not been amateur athlete. I don't think it's about 40 years, 30 years. So I think that's the key. I mean, I don't think we can get to any of this in the
Okay. Got a head start on 85. Might be able to fish melee DPS tomorrow. Alright, guys. I think I'm going to call it a night. I hope y'all have a good night. Peace out. Later.